Hello everybody, welcome to Boss Rush 1v1, our interview series where we celebrate the creators and their content. I am your host, Corey Gehrig, and alongside me for the ride is that retro code, Eddie B.
Hello, one and all.
And our special guest this week on 1v1 is from Diggity Podcast. You love it, you listen to it. The luscious Brody Fultz.
I love that you carry over the luscious Brody thing.
I have to.
It's fantastic.
I have to, you know.
Yeah,
it's a signature thing now. You know, you gotta. It's like Ed. Like he's that retro code. He's been that retro code for 5 years now. So.
Yeah. Yeah. For better or worse, it follows me wherever I go now. So
it sticks. It's done. it's done.
Pretty much.
Man. So. Brody, you are from Diggity Podcast. You've been gracious enough to have me on your show a couple times. You've been on our show. So why don't you, before we get started, why don't you remind everybody what Diggity is if they aren't listening to it?
So Diggity is, it used to be twice a week we would go through gaming news, and we ended up cutting that down to once a week now. But we go through all the gaming news, and we try to cover as much as we possibly can, obviously, with keeping things to a certain amount of time. We still have to kind of cut things here and there, but it's part video game news, part comedy, part nonsense, all at the same time. But
so
we have a blast doing it.
So pretty much entertainment.
Yeah. We try to make it entertaining. You know, we want to go through, keep people informed, but also make it, you know, fun and not just reading off news and just off the wall. I mean, my co-host Jeff, he's potentially a nut job. I'm not sure, but and we're both not okay in the head, and I think it makes it entertaining. I mean, but yeah, that's pretty much what we do, and we have YouTube as well. We're trying to get more into the YouTube side of things and kind of get more into some Let's Plays and stuff going forward. But we're ramping back up after kind of taking a little break there for a while, and happy to be back and happy to be slowly getting back into the swing of things.
Yay!
Yeah. I told you when you had me on the last time, I missed you guys. I'm glad you guys are back. It's because I think, you know, not that we don't have great guests, but like I feel like when we podcast together, it's there's a vibe there. You know, there's a good one. So
absolutely, yeah. I always have a blast doing shows with you guys, and again, I can't thank you enough for coming on and filling in with me there for a little bit, and it's always fun doing shows with you guys for sure.
Yeah. So like I said, 1v1 is our interview series. We're kind of gonna grill you about Diggity and your history of games and stuff. So
yeah,
you know, everybody starts somewhere. So games. What was your first game you remember playing? What do you remember playing the most when you were young? What was your first console? Give me the lowdown.
So the first game I vividly remember playing is probably Mario All-Stars. I think that was probably the one I spent the most time with, but it's kind of weird. Like I grew up in a home that my parents didn't really care for video games, and so I never had a console until I was probably 8 or 9. So my first console was actually an N64, but I went to a babysitter for a while, and they had an SNES. They also had an N64. We played a lot of like Mario Party, Mario Kart, But yeah, I mean, I vividly remember Mario All Stars. I'd go over to friends' houses and play all sorts of different things. Probably things I shouldn't have been playing at that time. You know, like the Getaway. The Getaway. I don't know if you remember that. Like that
for PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
Were you supposed to have to hug the wall to get energy back? Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it's weird. I had a weird intro into video games. It wasn't, normal by any means. I got into playing SNES really, and that's kind of where it all started, and then it evolved from there. Like I said, I got my own N64 and vividly remember playing Majora's Mask, which is still my favorite game of all time to this day. And that's probably my biggest childhood memory is playing through like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, and then I ended up getting a GameCube at some point and playing a lot of Melee. But like I said, I got a pretty late start to video games, which is odd for me to be in the position I'm in now and doing a podcast about video games when it's like, for a good portion of my life, it wasn't a part of my life, Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's different. But like I said, maybe that fueled the fire a little bit more.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, that just shows that there's a lot of hidden treasure out there now that you can find if you ever get a chance. Yes, play Super Mario All Stars. I had to think. I'm like, that was the collection pack. I'm like, you played the Lost levels? Did you beat it? Like, did you beat the Lost levels?
Probably not.
Nobody's ever beaten the Lost levels. Fun fact.
I've beaten it.
No, you haven't. Don't lie.
Yes, I have.
Fun fact: the Lost levels only has like 3 levels in it, but you never know that because you can't get past the first one. So.
It has 32 levels. I beat that whole game. I beat it on All Stars. You forget on how good I am at video games.
Ed, where's
Mario?
Where's that game genie? Where are you hiding that game genie?
I didn't. I played that game from level 1 to level 8-4.
I want to see that. We're gonna do that for a retro game show. We're gonna find that.
It's literally on Nintendo Online, and I cannot wait to show. Yeah,
it's on the NES. On there?
Yeah, it's on NES Online.
Interesting.
And I will show you my skills.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember when my dad brought home an Atari 2600 and like 5 games, and we would sit on the floor on his bedroom floor and just play. We would play Kaboom was my first video game. So
oh wow, yeah,
that was
okay.
That was a good time. I don't think my dad ever let me play. I just remember watching. But I mean he let me play, but I wasn't any good at it. So it was like Kaboom, Combat. Probably the really crappy version of Pac-Man.
See, it's weird for me because I had NES, I had Atari 2600/7200, had Sega Master System, and I had the arcade. At 5 years old, I have various games to play, and I think I jumped around playing Mario Brothers to Double Dragon on Sega Master System and Black Belt to Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man and Pac-Man Jr. and Combat, and there was a White Castle game for Atari that I used to play, and then whatever random thing they had at the arcade, like Kid Nick Eye or Tetris or something like that. Like, I jumped as a kid.
Yeah, and after I got to thinking about it a little bit more, there was a game I remember prior to finally having an N64 that I owned, and it was a Hot Wheels game for PC. I don't remember what it was, but it was a Hot Wheels game for PC. I remember sitting there and you steered with, the arrows and stuff like that. And it was real messed up. And they ended up making another one, a second one. And I remember playing that as well. But that would have been probably the first video game I had. But as far as consoles go, yeah, it was an N64. I was probably, was like 8 or 9, and it was weird because the N64 was old at the time, right? And so I got it from a neighbor, actually. The neighbor sold it to me. My dad bought it for me. My parents had split up for a short period of time, so my dad's like, "Oh yeah, I'll get him an N64." Well, my mom got me a GameCube at the time, so it was like, well, I mean, I like both, but one is old at this point, but I mean, like I said, N64 games are still some of my favorite games. Some of the games I have some of the fondest memories with.
It's one of the systems that historically has changed gaming in general. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Like I don't think there's any other system. Well, I won't say that because PlayStation 2 kind of did it with their DVDs, incorporating movies and stuff, and so people are able to not also game but watch movies. Xbox had actual strong online play. We didn't have the Sega channel anymore or anything like that. We're able to literally connect online like a computer and play games with friends around the world.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the cool thing about, looking back at the history of video games. You get to see all these different consoles, and while some of them, especially if you grew up with them, they don't seem like they mean as much, but really looking back in the grand scheme of things, like you said, Xbox was kind of really that big push for that multiplayer online experience. And it's each generation you see changes that in retrospect, they're massive and things you wouldn't, or you didn't really even think of too much at the time, or even you get into like Halo and how it changed the whole landscape for FPS. Having LAN parties is something that was such a massive thing throughout like middle school times, and it was like everybody got together and you had 2 Xboxes going and you had as many people possible, and everybody would change their name to something real messed up, so it'd be like you were killed by a hamster, and when you were a middle schooler, like that was the funniest thing in the world, right? Or like just stupid stuff.
There was when we were doing Halo LAN parties, like everybody would name their profile something stupid, right? And so somebody, I just remember that we were at a Halo party. There was 32 kids there, and every TV had an Xbox with 4 players on it, and we were doing Halo tournaments. And the one guy that was he was the best Halo player at our school. I mean, there wasn't any really online stuff to compare it to at the time, but he was way better than everybody else, and his name was My Left Testicle. So every time he killed you, he would say, "You were killed by my left testicle."
Oh yeah.
Wow. Was the Wavebird N64?
Wavebird was GameCube.
GameCube. Yeah.
I thought they had a wireless controller for.
They did. It was from Mad Catz, and it was bad.
Okay, so yeah, so then. Because we had Super Mario 64, where we actually was able to do 3D right. Of course, we had PlayStation, and then you had the analog stick, and that kind of set almost a new generation of gaming. After Sony had RPGs and the evolution of JRPGs with cinematics and stuff. It's kind of weird, like you talking about the history of video games and just seeing how things evolve. It feels like each system did something, but Nintendo, for some unknown reason, kept revolutionizing gaming every time they came out with a console.
I mean,
they still do it to this day, even though the Wii U was, it's kind of the joke of consoles to an extent. It did some cool stuff, and it really set the tone for what the Switch would become. And now the Switch is, probably one of my favorite consoles of all time. I love that thing. It's fantastic.
Well, and you got to think about when Wii U came out, Sony and Microsoft were trying to do the same thing with the Smart Glass and with PSP and Vita and stuff. And it was just as much as Nintendo get so much laughter and hatred for certain things, it always made other companies try to do something better and fail it at the same time. But it was something that you guys would have never thought of this if it wasn't Nintendo who started it, in a sense. You get what I'm saying? It's kind of weird.
I mean, Nintendo's nothing if not quirky, right? That's kind of their thing. Like, hey, let's do something off the wall that it might not hit every time, but I mean, when it hits, it really hits. I mean, you look at the Wii, the original Wii, like how crazy that sold and how much of a hot commodity that was when it dropped. Like I mean, they were really the first to do that kind of a motion control movement and things like that. And it looking back on it, like, yeah, the motion control was terrible, but for the time, like that was a big deal. That was a revolutionary thing, and it's that's the kind of thing that I enjoy about the history of video games, is looking back on the things that, by today's standards, not great, but for the time, like they changed a lot of different things and did a lot of really cool stuff.
And if you think about it, like Super Nintendo had the Super Game Boy, where you could play Game Boy games on your TV. GameCube did it with the Game Boy Advance that everybody still loved. Like, people were buying more Game Boy Advance games to play on their GameCube, and definitely when the SP came out, but that's separate. And then you get Wii playing GameCube games, and it's just like everybody who missed out still had a chance to play that generation of games.
Oh yeah,
in a sense, and that's kind of how backwards compatibility, even though that started with, I think, that kind of started out with the Game Boy Advance, how you used to still be able to play Game Boy games. Backwards compatibility, if people really paid attention to it, that's when it started becoming popular and everything, because these systems were built on libraries and everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you said Majora's Mask is your favorite game of all time.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to hate on you for that, because that is a great Zelda game.
I will. I'm staring at you with crazy eyes, saying
that's fine.
Nuts.
I'm good.
I got it tattooed on me, man. I can't change my mind about it.
No, here's the funny story about Majora's Mask for me is I wasn't the brightest kid when Ocarina of Time came out. Ed knows this story very well. I played Ocarina of Time, and I stopped playing it because I got so frustrated because I couldn't get past the what's the temple in the desert? The Gerudo temple as adult Link. And so I kind of stopped playing it for a while, and then Majora's Mask came out, and I blew through Majora's Mask in a weekend, and I loved every second of Majora's Mask, and it made me want to go back to Ocarina of Time. Well, I got the strategy guide for Ocarina of Time because I was so mad that I couldn't, and I figured out that you had to go back in time in Ocarina of Time, and I didn't realize you could do that when I was younger. So,
wow.
But I think that's the whole reason why I like Majora's Mask more than Ocarina of Time. I've only played Ocarina of Time one time in my entire life.
Wow.
Majora's holds a special place for me because that was probably, like I said, it's one of the first games that I beat on a console of my own. It was a game that and on top of that, like just the tone of that game. Like I love Zelda games. Zelda is my favorite franchise of all time, right? And so I pretty much love all of the Zelda games. I mean, there's a few that aren't necessarily in my favorites, but
I don't know. Those CDI games are pretty good.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to have a meeting with you after this conversation.
But Majora's Mask, like I always loved the idea of the masks, and I always loved Skull Kid as this. He's kind of a villain, but also not really at the same time. Like, and it had these dark tones to the series that hasn't really been done a whole lot. Like, they kind of did a little bit of it in like Twilight Princess, and it kind of seems like the next Breath of the Wild's going to go in that realm, but maybe not. We don't entirely know, right? But that, for whatever reason, that game really, really just struck this certain note within me, and ever since I played it and beat it for the first time, it's always held this top spot, regardless of whether it is the best Zelda game. I would argue it's not even, but for me, the story and everything that it does and all of the missions and like how you could still beat the game without necessarily doing everything. Like there's some little things here and there, and like it was just such a cool thing that they did, and the story behind it and how like it was created in such a short period of time because they were given just such a short period of time to actually do it because they didn't want to create a sequel to Ocarina of Time. And they're like, well, we'll give you this long, and if you can do it in this time period, like, yeah, you can do it. Well, sure enough, they did it. And I personally, like, I think it has some of the coolest mechanics, like you only have 3 days and you have to go back.
And that's literally what ruined the whole game for me. When I read that, I think I threw my EGM down and said no.
Yeah.
Because as a kid and a fan of the Zelda games, I want to take my time to adventure everything. Putting me on the time limit, I was just like, no, you're not supposed to do this with Zelda. I was one of those kind of gamers at that moment,
and that's fair. That seems to be the divide, right? Like you either love Majora's Mask or you hate it. There's no in between. It's not like I tolerated it. No, it's you love it or you hate it, and it's weird.
I don't hate it for its premise because I love the dark themes. I love how weird that game gets to be and how the freedom that they chose. I think what gets me is just that one little time mechanic. Anything else about Majora's Mask, I respect, and for people who love it, I respect and love still. It's just that little time thing. I'm like, if you would have gave me a Majora's Mask where I didn't have to do this time thing, I would be able to enjoy this game.
That's fair. But, I can respect that.
But it's great. But I love the fact that it's your greatest game because, like you said, it was a game that you own and you beat it on your first console. Games like that are very special to people, and some people will fight tooth and nail for it. But I'm like, if it really means something to you, because it was something that you was able to have on your own, a system that you got on your own, game that you got on your own. Like, if this is the first time, it's gonna mean everything because this is something that you did for your own. You didn't get it from nobody else.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Zelda, you say, is your favorite franchise of all time. I mean, is that just because of Majora's Mask specifically, or obviously that's where you fell in love with the franchise, clearly, but is there, because like people's favorite game of all time doesn't necessarily equate to their favorite franchise of all time,
right?
So,
yeah, for me, it started with Majora's Mask, and then actually I played Majora's before Ocarina of Time, so I went back and played Ocarina of Time. Played, most of the Game Boy games. There was some on the DS that I didn't play. Like I didn't play Phantom Hourglass. Just a couple here and there, but I mean, everything other than that, I pretty much played. I mean, even Skyward Sword, and that to me, not one of my favorites by any means, but it's still, a respectable game in its own right.
I mean, a bad Zelda game is still a good game,
Right.
And you know what? I really don't feel like Skyward Sword is a bad game. I
don't think so either. Just not my favorite.
It's funny. I think I had that number one over Wind Waker.
Really?
I was You're going an back and forth. Being.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the reason why that I think Skyward Sword over Wind Waker is definitely because of the animation, the graphics. I think some of the characters that I was encountering, I fell in love with. I paused, I laughed, and I'm like, I want to be in this world. And I think Wind Waker was just like, as much as I love cell shading, not much is happening in this world. And I think, and at the time, and that's just me at the time, because
it's sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's like Wind Waker is it's kind of an isolated experience, Zelda experience. Whereas at Skyward Sword, you open up in this beautiful world where you're interacting with Zelda and what's his name? I want to say Groose. In his posse, and you are in the school where there's other knights there and stuff. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot going on in that world. Whereas in Wind Waker, like, yeah, you interact with your sister, but she gets kidnapped. You interact with your grandma, but you leave her and you join this pirate ship, and then you get thrown off the ship, right? And like, it's just a very isolated Zelda experience. So I really liked the story of Skyward Sword a lot. Like, I thought that story was really fun. I thought just the simplicity of Link and Zelda's friendship in that game was very fun and cute to watch play out. It's just like the mechanics of the game were just
Yeah.
And I didn't have a problem with the mechanics. It's very weird. I think I love, because even Twilight Princess plays a part in this discussion between Twilight, Wind Waker, and Skyward. It's like Twilight had my favorite dungeons and favorite dungeons.
Mm-hmm.
Wind Waker had my favorite bosses, and Skyward Sword had my favorite world and characters. And then it feels like Breath of the Wild was able to take all three of that and just make it to a cohesive adventure of a game, and it became my number one. And it's very weird that even though Nintendo went back to the first Zelda, I'm like, there's been so many in the games that's in Breath of the Wild, but those three stand out so much that it became like my favorite Zelda of all time.
Yeah, no, I entirely agree. Like, I think there's a lot of things to love about Skyward Sword.
Mm-hmm.
I think my big hang up is it took a long time to get going. That intro was way too long. And then, just like I said about the Wii earlier, like, the motion controls are not fantastic.
Yeah, like, I think
so it makes it difficult because some of your inputs don't register properly, and some of those boss fights and things get rough if that stuff's not working entirely.
You haven't played Beyond the Beyond and Wild Arms. If you want to talk about a long intro and play those two games, you'd be like, goodness, Sony, start this game.
People complain a lot about how slow Twilight Princess starts out, and like, I think Skyward Sword's intro is way worse than Twilight Princess.
Oh,
but I think at that point, a lot of people played Twilight Princess because it was a Wii launch title, and if they didn't get a Wii, they played it on GameCube. And then by the time Skyward Sword came out, everybody had already put their Wiis away because the HD generation took off way faster than anybody anticipated.
Yeah, not
absolutely.
Me. I still have my Wii out, even when I have my PS3.
Yeah, I still have one. It's sitting next to my TV. It's not plugged into anything.
But, once the
Wii
U came out.
Oh, go ahead, man.
Oh, once the Wii U came out, I just put my Wii away. It's downstairs in the basement, and the first Wii I got, I lost in a house fire. But I did get another one, but also it's just kind of like just sitting down there, So
yeah, just hanging out
with all the other consoles in a big blue packing tote, just waiting.
I had the white Wii, and I gave it to my mom, and she started buying games for it like crazy. And then I got the black one, and I was just like,
I had the launch white one. It's the only console now. The only Nintendo console that I didn't keep from launch because, it burned in a fire. So it's the only Nintendo console I own that wasn't the launch console when I got it. So, just wasn't meant to be Wii.
It was a gaming machine that turned into a Netflix machine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, but what modern games are you playing? Like, what are your favorite modern games? I would say, I guess it would be a better term for that.
It depends. I play because I try to have. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say because tastes change from when you're younger too. Because like I used to play a lot of JRPGs and now I don't even touch them because I don't know.
It's a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
says someone who's playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey for the second time.
Well, yeah, there's that. But for me, I kind of have a plethora of games. I bounce around a lot, and I have games I play with other people, like, and then I have quite a few single player games that I'm working on. But honestly, for single player games, I've been hitting a lot of JRPGs lately. Like I played Tokyo Mirage Sessions, and I love like Fire Emblem, which is kind of JRPG type, but adjacent. Strategy. yeah, it's in the same realm, right?
Yeah.
And then like I've been playing through Final Fantasy VII Remake. I just bought Persona 5 again because I got royal.
I did too.
Stuff like that. Like
that should be a hashtag. You got roiled.
Yeah, I got roiled. That exactly. And so in 150 hours, I'll finally be done with it.
I have the original Persona 5 that I need to go back and beat, and I have royal.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Me too. I never beat the first one, but I was like, yeah, but there's royal at this point. I mean, I might as well play the next edition.
For me, it was Target had to buy two get one free. So
there you go.
Well, royal is starting. I'm like, royal is out, and Animal Crossing is out. Let me take the.
Yeah.
Was it? No. Yeah.
But and then like multiplayer games, I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty, which is not something I have said for a very long time, but I really, really got into Modern Warfare. I still enjoy playing it. That's kind of like the group game that we play. We have a group of guys that kind of usually plays on the weekends and stuff, and that's the game of choice right now. We even got into playing Gang Beasts lately. Like that's been one of those weird games that we're like, hey, why not? And that's always a blast. It's just kind of a fun indie type game, where you just beat the crap out of each other and throw each other in front of trains. Like it's just a goofy game, but it's fun. But yeah, I mean. It's essentially boils down to I play a lot of JRPGs for my single player stuff, and multiplayer really just varies from whatever's out and catches everybody's attention, but open world games lose me. I love so many things about a lot of open world games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Absolutely love the world they built there and everything they did, but I get so overwhelmed with so many side quests and things that I finally just shut down, and I'm like, I need a story. I need something to focus myself more than just having this giant map of things to venture through, because what's going to happen is if I commit myself to that, I'm never coming back.
No, I get it. I've been playing because I had a save on PlayStation 4, and now I've actually been I've been replaying the series on Xbox One because in theory, I want to do some sort of like video on Assassin's Creed before Valhalla comes out. Will it happen? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how much time I have. But it's I can't believe how much that series has shifted from this 10-hour stealth experience to like this 120-hour RPG.
Oh, it's wild. That's one game series or franchise that has just changed so much, but obviously it's for the better. I mean, I love the first Assassin's Creed for what it is, but that's a game that I beat twice because I beat it on my own Xbox and then I beat it on my buddy's Xbox, and I did like everything you could possibly do, and boy, by the end of it, I was done. It was just
you could only sit on
the same stuff.
You could only sit on so many benches and eavesdrop.
Right.
I think when Tom Clancy's open world games start getting big, Ubisoft just decided to make all their games fall under that. So the recent Assassin's Creed, the Ghost Recon games,
the Division,
the Division.
I would even argue
Far
that
Cry.
Assassin's Creed is actually kind of what pushed it in that direction, and then everything kind of followed suit after they saw how well Assassin's Creed did.
Yeah,
that would be my
perspective. I would actually go before that. I would say like Far Cry 2 and 3 probably.
I think Far Cry 3 pushed it because Far Cry 3 is so well respected and high regarded that it feels like that game incorporated to all of their like future hardcore third person action adventure games. Yeah. So was
the original Assassin's Creed before Far Cry 3 though?
Yeah.
It was, but I think that one was more like level based.
Fair enough.
Because it was
like Hub
pretty
Worlds.
kind
It
of
was Hub-
segmented. Yeah.
I would say
Yeah.
hub worlds because you had like the three main cities, and then you had that kind of open road area where you would travel between the cities.
Right. Which was pointless.
Yeah,
And it took forever.
yeah. I almost broke it. I almost broke my TV with the Xbox 360 controller when that final battle in that game.
Oh man. Yeah, I can understand that.
Because wasn't Prince of Persia when it came the GameCube one and Xbox one? Didn't that play a part? Like, wasn't that supposed to be Assassin's Creed?
Assassin's Creed 1 was supposed to be a Prince of Persia game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they said no. Pass. By the way, side tangent. I know this isn't really a new show, but did you see that Prince of Persia game that somebody dug off of YouTube that's been up for 8 years and nobody noticed? It's basically like Assassin's Creed meets Uncharted and Tomb Raider. It looks awesome.
No, I didn't see that.
It's awesome. It looks awesome. I'm like, man, I hope they revisit this game because it's looks pretty cool. But,
yeah. Yeah, I loved some Prince of Persia back in the day. I mean, back when it was still in its prime, it was a blast to play. But that's a series that didn't carry forward very well, unfortunately.
I know that's sad. I played that one when the game that came out with the movie.
Yeah,
I think that movie's what killed Prince of Persia.
That's very
Disney,
possible.
Disney killed Prince of Persia.
I really don't think so. I think after they did the third game, I think no one cared about Prince of Persia because they kept trying to.
People liked that cell shaded one a lot. I think people didn't.
I loved the cell shaded one.
I think people didn't like it because the ending was DLC that you had to buy. I think that was the complaint about that game. And then the one that came out with the movie, I think nobody bought it because they just assumed it was a movie tie-in game and they didn't want to play it.
Yeah, I never played that one. I did play the cell shaded one, and I remember the ending was just kind of there. And like, I living at my parents' house at that time. They had like really, really bad internet. So DLC wasn't really an option for me at the time. I was like, well, this is where I get off, I guess. Yeah. It's the end of the road.
Which is weird because like Prince of Persia kind of expired. Yeah, Assassin's Creed, but also if you look at Infamous, if you look at oh goodness, there's another parkour like style game.
Mirror's Edge, kind of,
yeah, Mirror's Edge
sort of way.
Yeah,
that Ninja Turtles game was on the Prince of Persia engine.
We would not speak of that game.
That was a great game. I got all the achievement points in it.
I think Prince of Persia had a lot of influence across the industry in a lot of ways that aren't even really obvious. I mean, yeah, you got the parkour stuff, but I mean, some games have even developed like the turning back time or just different elements. I think Prince of Persia really had a huge influence. I mean, and it's kind of a shame that seemed to die for no apparent reason. I mean, there's still a lot of diehard fans for it, for sure.
In a way, it got transferred. Like, yeah, you had the rewind time, but then you had Max Payne with the bullet time. Yeah. And so it's kind of like very kind of weird to see. It would be very interesting to see games that use different mechanics that have evolved or that have like probably influenced a lot of other games in a sense. You know,
did you ever play Stranglehold? I think is what it was called. It was a John Woo game.
Yeah, the one off. Was it PS3?
Yeah.
Yeah, I played it on 360. Boy, that was an experience. It was fun though. It was like just a wild time.
Yeah, that game got delayed so many times. But
it was one of those games. Like at the time, I was not plugged into all of this. I didn't keep up on any of it. I would just go to the local game shop and take a handful of games in with me, trade them in, and pick up whatever looked cool and walk out and start playing whatever it was, And that just happened to be one of the games I got one time. And boy, it was something. I had fun with it though. I mean, it was a lot of fun, but it was definitely not what I thought I was getting.
Yeah.
It was supposed to mimic a John Woo style film. So
Yeah, it was cool. That had like the bullet time and probably
Yeah.
even to a larger extent than what Max Payne had.
there was a game called, is it Kill Dot Zone or Kill Dot Shot or something like that? It was by Bandai Namco or Namco at that time, and it kind of was a third person action game, but it wasn't in the realm like it was supposed to be something like Gears of War if you look at it, but it didn't have Gears of War controls. But it was a cover based shooting kind of game. If you look it up, you'll be like Kill Switch. That's what it was. Kill
Switch. Yeah. I remember. Okay, I remember that one now. Yeah. Once you said the title, I was trying to think of what you're talking about. I was like, surely he's not talking about Killzone.
I can see that box art for Kill Switch. It's just like that really blocky white font with that blue kind of laser sight in the middle of it. It's just very generic looking.
Yeah, because EA did Freedom Fighters, and that was kind of their first, I guess, 4-player co-op kind of game. Was it 4-player co-op? I think.
I believe so. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm
not 100%, but I think so.
So, yeah, okay, we're gonna move on from that side tangent. So you are not only part of Diggity Podcast, but you have a new project happening. What are you doing with this cool new thing you're doing?
So I actually launched 2 new projects this week, which I'm an idiot. It's basically what that boils down to.
Join that club.
No, you guys are excited and enthusiastic.
So one of the projects I
one way
launched, well, it's something like that.
Wow. I'm just trying to make it feel professional.
I launched so my son has gotten very obsessed with YouTubers and things like that. So I actually launched a YouTube channel with my son, and we've done some videos with both of my sons now, and that was just kind of a fun little project, something we did on the side. I mean, I don't ever expect that to necessarily get into anything, but it's something he wanted to do, and it's something, the kids recently have been so obsessed with YouTubers, and he knows I do the podcast, and he knows I'm on YouTube and this and that, so he's always wanted to be on the podcast. And our podcast isn't necessarily like super
you just slap that E on your podcast when you publish
it. Yeah, it's not exactly E. It's also not like super bad, but things happen.
It's aimed towards a specific crowd that's not, young.
Yeah, not 8.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we did a family friendly YouTube channel. It's called B-Rex Gaming. Both of our names start with a B, and both of our middle names are Rex. So we kind of played on that and went in our mascot type things, a T-Rex. So just kind of a little stupid play on words, but it's something we kind of have fun with. And we've posted 1 video. I was gonna upload a handful more, but some of the videos we had recorded last weekend, we had some audio issues and some goofy stuff happen. So we're uploading 1 for now, and we'll slowly start to release 1 every week. And then my other side gig that I actually recorded today, right before I came on here, is a little side podcast I'm doing with I'm not doing it with Jeff. This one's actually my own deal with a guy I'm good friends with out from around where I live, and it's called Soup Sandwich. It's just kind of a random podcast. It's kind of one of those things we get to just kind of hang out and talk and share with the internet all of the stupid stuff we've done over the course of our lives, and just random things like that. Sit down, have a drink, and just kind of talk about it. And like I said, this was our first episode, and so that's kind of something that's I've wanted to do for a long time, and this is kind of the way it all shook down, and so I'm excited about that as well. But I mean, at the end of the day, Diggity is still kind of my main focus, and the other stuff's just a sidebar. But it's fun. I'm sure Corey understands about getting into a lot of projects and suddenly being like, oh, I have something every day this week.
Yeah.
I'm sure you do too, Ed. I mean, yeah.
I was feeling that on Monday. We usually record Nintendo Power Block on Thursday nights, and we recorded on Monday this week, and we also are prepping our third season of Indie Masterclass, which is where we like a 15 to 20 minute Let's Play show where we, kind of just play through some of our favorite indie games that are available right now. And we got into Shovel Knight King of Cards, and I was so tired that I kept trying to do this one jump that was nearly impossible. And I finally did it, and I found out that it just led to a secret, and it didn't even advance the level at all. And I think we're going to have to redo that one, Ed. I'm not going to lie to you. But, maybe we'll add that section of the show to the end for bloopers or something. But
yeah,
we have plans on doing more stuff, but it's just kind of like we wrote down a list of all of our shows. I think we had, I don't know how many. What did we have? Like 26 things we were working on at one point.
Yeah.
I have 3, and I'm like, man,
3.
I'm way too busy.
Yeah,
3. 3 is just 3 is easy.
Well, no.
The thing is,
compared to 26, real easy.
I mean, the projects that we have though, like there's only 4 things that are weekly right now. So, we started doing the seasonal model because it kind of works well with everybody's schedule, and we can plan ahead of time. And a lot of the things we do are just once a month. Like video game book club, or this show is now going to be once a month instead of every other week, and so it's just it works. It's not like we're doing that everything every week, because that would just be, we'd all have to quit life to work on everything. But it's still a lot, and we're gonna see what sticks and what doesn't, and if something doesn't stick, you just kick it out and move on. But
on to the next thing.
But I mean, we love what we do, right? And podcasting is something that Ed and I have been, we've been doing Nintendo Power Block for a better part of 6 years at this point. And everything else is kind of like, we have friends and stuff that want to do stuff too, and so we just kind of added on, made Nintendo Power Block part of something bigger. But like this podcasting is something that we're super passionate about, and that's why we do so much of it, because we like to do it. And
yes,
some episodes are definitely not as good as others, but also Ed and I, sometimes Ed and I after a show, we're like, man, that was an awesome episode, and it kind of like reinvigorates everything. So
it's very easy to kind of get into a little bit of a funk. Like you can put out a couple episodes and you're just, man, it feels like you're going through the motions, and then it takes one episode and you're like, that's why I love doing that. That's why I love sitting down every week and talking about sometimes games I don't care about. And to be perfectly honest, I mean, but it's the nature of what we do, right? And
it's having that conversation and hearing people out, and it's just like you get into some topics, some other topics you think that you have nothing to say, but then when you start getting to talking, you got a lot to say, and you and unexpected. And when it's just on a roll, and you just when you on a roll and you feel like everybody's on the high, it's hard to get off, because you can't keep that magic consistent. But when it hits, man, it hits good.
And like I like to sometimes stay up later than I should, because I like doing it so much, right? Like, usually sometimes during the week I'll stay up till I'll go to bed at like 10 o'clock at night during the week sometimes, because I'm, we'll record. We record late one night, and then I'll go to bed kind of early the rest of the week to get ready for stuff that we're planning on the weekend. But then there's some nights where I'm like, I should go to bed at 10, and then when my kid and wife go to bed, I'll pop on the Xbox or the Switch and play for 2 or 3 hours, and then next thing you know, it's 12:30, 1 o'clock, and you're like, oh, I have to be up in 5 hours to go to work, and and it's just kind of like, and that sometimes I feel it like when we go to record and I didn't sleep well the night before, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm like, let's just get through the show. You can take a nap, whatever.
Yeah.
But so since we're on the topic of podcasting in general, like why did you want to start podcasting? Like what made you want to start Diggity and, your new thing? Like it's just, people always ask us, like we get that question a lot, like how do we start a podcast, or why did you start the podcast, So
so for Diggity, the kind of origin story there, the Spidey bite type of deal. We have a pretty consistent group that we play games with on a pretty regular basis, and so we would get into parties and stuff, and I've always kind of, well, I won't say always, but in recent years I've kept up with gaming news and things like that, probably for the last, I'd say at least 5 years, right? And so we'd be kind of in a party, just playing games or whatever, hanging out, and me and Jeff would be going back and forth, like, "Hey, did you see this? You see this? You see this? You see this?" And our other buddy, if you've ever listened, which I know you guys have listened to the show, but like for people that may not know, like we have a buddy who we call him Lawyer Craig. And so we bash on him all the time. If you ever listen to us, we bash on him constantly. But anyway, he's the one that kind of gave us the idea. Little bit of love, little bit of bashing. It's fine. But he's kind of the one that actually came up with the idea. He's like, you guys should do a podcast. He's like, as much as you guys know about this for no particular reason, like, you guys should do a podcast and just kind of make it all gaming related. So we literally sat on that for a year before we ever did anything about it. And then all of a sudden one day we're kind of like, okay, let's make this happen. Like it's something, it started off as kind of like a joke, like, hey, would you guys shut up? Like, and finally we're like, yeah, you know what? We'll actually do a podcast on it. Like this would be cool. And so, we've been doing it for, I think, about a year and a half now, and a little over, give or take, but it's something that initially was interesting because it was, I had never really done something to where I was kind of, putting myself on the internet or whatever, or recording myself, like listening to your own voice. I don't know about you guys. I hate listening to my own voice with a burning passion.
Yeah, me.
Ed just likes to hear himself talk in general.
What? Wait. More shade? More sass, Corey? Really?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. So much sass. But no, it's something that the more and more we did it, the more and more kind of passionate we grew about it. And we kind of were talking about starting a side podcast, and some stuff came up, and it was, we ended up having to go on a hiatus. And if we weren't even into the hiatus for 2 weeks, and I was already trying to come up with something. Like I was like, I miss it. It's something I love doing, and it was kind of, there was some things going on the back end that were causing issues, and so it was Jeff had some family things he needed to take care of, and so we, like I said, we took the hiatus, and I was ready to come back, and so I came back with Diggity by myself for an episode, and then Corey came on with me, and then I did another episode by myself. And kind of in the background, I had been me and Jeff had been actually talking about doing a side show that was just kind of like a random show, and so that kind of evolved, and I had been talking to some buddies, and then that's just all of a sudden, next thing I know, I have another podcast that I'm gonna do, and it's just this random kind of have fun, talk about whatever type of podcast, and that's how Soup Sandwich kind of evolved and kind of took form, and so yeah, it's not a great origin story, but it's an origin story, I suppose. Like, I think
it's better
Disney's
than
is
ours.
a little bit more interesting. Ours is, as far as Soup Sandwich goes, it's kind of like quarantine and other family issues that led to having to go on hiatus led to Soup Sandwich, which, I mean, it works and it's fine and it's cool and I'm excited it's around, but yeah, it's not exactly the most uplifting of stories, you know?
Yeah, I mean, basically Ed and I were in a Nintendo Facebook group at one point, and like we were in a comment thread, and I was just like, "You want to do a podcast?" He's like, "Yep." Here we are.
Yes.
The other great kind of origin story, you'll realize everything that happens is like no rhyme or reason for whatsoever. Like me and my wife met at a party. Like it was one of those really unromantic type of stories. Like we met at a party type of thing, and that's about it. Like the kind of thing I'm not going to pass along to my children, you know. Yeah. But we're at this point, I'm becoming almost notorious for having awful, lame origin stories.
It's fair. I mean, look, yeah, not every story can be a winner, though, right? I mean,
that's right.
So, we are approaching that hour mark, but you know, I wanted to get you on this show in particular is something that, you know, Ed and I are particularly kind of proud of pushing and stuff, and you know, we love having you on our shows here, and hopefully we can get you on more at some point, you know, not to take away from your 3 projects or anything, but
no, absolutely. I'm looking to get up to, you know, 26, maybe 27.
You know, I mean, we can give you some of our stuff if you want.
No, I like I said earlier, I love being on the show with you guys. I always have a blast. It's always fun. As much as I love doing shows with Jeff, sometimes it's nice to get a different variety and do something slightly different, just to switch it up every once in a while. You know, I'm sure every once in a while you guys are sick of each other as well. No. It's nice to get a little break.
No.
No.
The thing with me and Corey is it's just like, you know, we did the podcast, we feeling good. I'll see you in the chat, and we would literally be in the chat trying to update each other. We got news, or checking up on each other.
Today, like when I messaged you yesterday about this, you know, you were like, is 9 or 9:30 good? I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And like, you know, I was getting stuff ready because like I've kind of self-quarantined myself during this coronavirus. Like I sleep in a different room from my wife and away from my kid and stuff, just because I'm still working, you know. Right. So I kind of was getting my stuff ready, and Ed and I were talking about the EA stuff that's been coming out, and like, you know, they might be putting a bunch of games on Switch in the next year or so, and so before you got on, we were talking about that, and we were like, let's just do a quick video on that. Let's just do a quick discussion. And so that was like, okay, well, I think it was the first time Ed and I kept the show under an hour, though. It was 15 minutes.
Yes, because there's some, we call them mini blocks, and they end up being like a long podcast, like 40 to 50 minits. Yeah. Because like I said, we be on that high. We be having good discussion, and you don't want to end it.
Yeah. Once you get rolling, it really is hard to find a good place to cut it off. But yeah, I feel that big time. We've tried to kind of cut our show down a little bit, not too much. We usually aim for like 45 minutes or so. And then next thing you know, it's like an hour and a half.
That's our 45 minutes is our Nintendo segment at the beginning of the show. Exactly. I mean, when we have guests on, we do try to keep it more on pace. But sometimes we're like, even if there's no news, like when there's no news, that seems to be where our shows get longer because we just kind of like, okay, well, just talk about whatever, I guess.
Me and Jeff go through that all the time. It is very much that like, hey, heads up, not a whole lot of news today, so we might have to improvise a little bit. Next thing you know, it's like the longest show we've done. Like I don't know how this happened.
Yeah, yeah.
Brody, before we go, would you ever show your kids like 80s cartoons and get their reaction? Because there's a guy named Andrew Eisen. He has a series called A Middle-Aged Man Watching Jim and the Holograms because he's never seen it. So really? would you show like your kids like seeing like Transformers from the 80s or He-Man and stuff, and like literally doing a video or doing a podcast is sort of thing? Like, what did you guys think of old cartoons versus like new cartoons? Like doing a He-Man comparison or a Transformers comparison.
I've never actually done it. I know my kids occasionally will get into some stuff from like early 90s, and I think that's probably the furthest they've gotten into so far. Screw it. I'd do it. No problem. Like my kids watch just about anything. They don't really have too many. They're not super picky, but I have a strong feeling they wouldn't like it, but they'd watch it. I mean, like lately, or I guess not lately, but there for a little bit, they got into Space Jam. That was a big one they really, really liked. Which, I mean, as a kid, I loved Space Jam, so I was all for it. But I know they watched like the original Pokemon series. They've watched. They got into some old Looney Tunes there for a while, and that's probably the closest they got. Which, I mean, some of those old Looney Tunes they run pretty far back. But I mean, I don't think they've ever seen He-Man. I don't think they've ever seen like Smurfs or Snorks or anything like that.
Like,
which would be fun, but
because I would love to see.
You know what? I take that back. They have watched Wacky Racers. I don't know if you remember that one or not.
From Hanna-Barbera, where there's all the 3 different cartoons. Oh, no, that's the Olympics.
You're right. Same realm.
Yeah, but it was those. Yeah.
They actually had like the races that have been mimicked by like Mickey at this point and about everybody else. But they've watched a few here and there on like Boomerang type channels, But
because I would love for them to watch like the original Voltron and then watch the new Voltron on Netflix and just see you as a dad talking to your kids, making that comparison. And if you had that love for that show, for Voltron, to see how your love and nostalgia plays a part in the conversation, where they're just like, they're coming into something new. Just be like, this is how you become a nerd? Is this how you end up loving shows? And just having that conversation. And in a sense, that's a podcast upon itself. Like it's a video, but it's a podcast upon itself because it's about that conversation.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. It's like my kids are 8 and 5 right now, so probably not gonna get a whole lot out of the 5-year-old as far as like quality conversation about something like that. A little bit here and there. The 8-year-old, you'd get a little bit more, but honestly, he'd probably be completely against it right now.
Show the 5-year-olds Muppet Babies and see.
Yeah, but next thing I know, I'm getting called old by my kids, which is great. I'm too young to be old. That's some bull crap right there.
That is true.
My kid's really into Tom and Jerry right now.
Nice.
It's
yes.
Cool. Yeah. So, that's kind of where we're at. She also watches this weird Netflix show called Masha and the Bear, and it's about this little girl that makes trouble and this bear is like this giant brown bear that lives in the woods and takes care of her and fixes all the mistakes and fixes all of the things that she causes trouble with. So it's kind of funny, but I mean, that's not an old show. It's a pretty new show actually, but she does like Tom and Jerry though. It's kind of fun to watch because I haven't watched Tom and Jerry since I was a kid. So we're sitting there watching it, laughing and stuff, and my wife's just kind of looking at us like, "Which one of you's the 2-year-old?"
Well, I can't give no cartoon recommendations because I've been wanting to go back to watch this show called Carol and Tuesday. This is by Watanabe, Shinichi Watanabe, who did Cowboy Bebop. He made animated show for Netflix where it's two girls. They come from different parts of the world and they make music. And each episode has music, and it's such a good show. I'm just like, I don't think a lot of people are going to watch this show, but it literally is so good. It's something different for Watanabe because he's an animator who loves doing shows about music and stuff. And this one, it's just like, it has so many different styles. It's just piano and guitar, and it's just like you hear it and you hear the songs and be like, I would buy this soundtrack because it's so good.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's 26 episodes. It's 30 minutes. So it may take you like 4 to 5 hours to watch it all through. Like both seasons are up.
Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of 1v1. Brody Fultz from Diggity Podcast, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Really do.
You know, as I tell you always, you have an open invite to any of our shows that you want to come on. So why don't you plug away real quick for Diggity and your new stuff, and just let us know where we can find you.
So you can find Diggity, which again is kind of the main thing I do on Instagram, on Twitter, it's on Facebook, but it's always just Diggity Podcast. On YouTube, you can find us at search for Diggity Gaming. That's actually the easiest way, because if you search for Diggity, you get Blackstreet. No Diggity. You
guys are also on our YouTube page on the sidebar where it's where you can feature channels. You guys are there on our YouTube channel too. So if you are struggling, you can go to our YouTube channel and you guys are there as well.
There you go. As far as Soup Sandwich, we are on everything, but it's odd because it's kind of like across the different platforms, the different names have been taken. So we have on Instagram, I think it's soup_sandwich. You
had to play the underscore game.
Sorry. Oh yeah, we had to do it was soup_sandwich_podcast on Instagram. I think it's the Soup Sandwich Podcast on Twitter, and it's all sorts of jacked up. But the first episode isn't out yet. I actually have to edit that yet and get that uploaded. So that's kind of in the pipeline right now. And then for B-Rex, you can find me on YouTube at B-Rex Gaming. You'll see a real cool green T-Rex logo, and that would be it. And like I said, right now we just have one video up, and of course it's Fortnite, because that's what 8-year-olds love, is Fortnite. But I appreciate you guys having me on the show. I love being on the show with you guys, and I definitely would love to be a part whenever you guys need somebody or whatever. So, and we need to get you guys on the show. We need to get Ed on the show as well. We have not had actually Ed on our show yet. It just seems like I end up talking to Corey more, so just kind of the way things shake down sometimes.
Indeed, you guys have to come on to Optional Opinion, because I have a lot of good topics to talk about, and you guys will be like...
Again, Brody, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. You can find Boss Rush Podcast on Twitter at Boss Rush Podcast. You can find 1v1 on our podcast feeds once a month, where we feature a different creator every month. So you can also find us on YouTube at youtube.com/BossRushGames, and all of our content and all of our podcasts on BossRushGames.com. Ed, thanks for sitting in on this one as well. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to play games and be better. We'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.